The rhetoric I've heard out of Notre Dame is we're going to play physical football. We're going to rely on the offensive line. We're coming at you. We're going to make no bones about it. Here we are. We're coming at you. Some of that, I don't like to conjecture what's going through people's minds. I don't know if that's, we're trying to talk ourselves into being confident and that we can man you up, or this is what we're doing, or, this is a smoke screen and we've got a really aggressive pass happy game plan. And we're going to talk about, sizing you up and beating you up front. But that's been the talk from Notre Dame about the running game and playing physical.
Right. And I think to a certain extent with how late they are in the season, it's hard to just kind of change your offensive philosophy because I think you probably get blown out more if you do that. If Notre Dame tries to throw 50 times, 60 times against Alabama, and throw it all over the field, then they're probably going to get blown out. But if they try to stick to their strengths, Notre Dame's offensive line, that is something that could compete against Alabama in regards to, even from a recruiting ranking standpoint, they have 4 or 5-star guys all across the line of scrimmage. And that includes their backup at center who's going to play, in the playoff game as well. And then their rushing attack has been a strength of theirs all year. So I think that they do need to try to stick to their strengths, because I really think that's the only way they have a chance. But at the same time, they can't go 0 for 2 in deep shots or big play shots, because 0 for 2, whether you go 0 for 2, that you only tried it twice. I'd rather see you go 3 for 10 and give that opportunity to, or at least let Alabama or whoever they're playing know that it's in the arsenal, or it can be done, and they have to keeping them honest, I guess, to a certain extent. Even if the percentage of doing it isn't great, but you got to show it a few more times than they did in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, when I think about Notre Dame belonging in the playoff, I think they clearly belong from the standpoint of playing a tough schedule and performing well against that schedule. We can get into conference championships and whether that should matter or not, but just in regards to quality record versus a quality schedule, I think they belong if you just take it based on that. A lot of people don't like any kind of comparisons to the NFL, and I think that they're two distinctly different sports and structures, but I think that there are some things that could be taken from the NFL model and given to college football in terms of objectivity. And when it comes to this situation where people say, this team and that team don't belong, certainly I also think that, we've got a small sample size of 6 years and 12 playoff games in the semifinals. And, if we were going to evaluate NFL teams and pluck out the 9-7 playoff teams versus the 13-3 teams, we would have less of an interesting playoff. So Notre Dame's going to show up and we'll see what they've got as a 20-point underdog against Alabama. Is there anything else we haven't hit on that you think's important or interesting?
No, not really. I think we talked off air a little bit. To a certain extent, I think Notre Dame fans just want to keep this close from just kind of a respect perspective. If they can get in a shootout with Alabama for whatever reason, or keep Alabama's offense off the field and make it a 30-20 game or something like that, I think that will go a long way for Notre Dame gaining a little bit of national respect, at least on the for the college football playoff. I know me and you have talked about this several times in the past. I think Notre Dame's right in there in that top 10 and probably closer to top 5 than they are top 10, but the parity difference is real, at least in my opinion, and not really an excuse. I just think it's a fact. And if part of that might be coaching to an extent as well. I think that there are arguments to be made that this isn't Notre Dame's most talented team over the last 8 years, but maybe coaching held them back in previous times. So they got to find this happy balance of coaching and talent when it all comes together. So no, I'm going in with I'm trying to go in with no expectations. I don't want to hope for the best or hope for the worst. And we'll go from there, I guess.
There you go. Well, for some reason, Alabama, and I understand the respect factor that they've earned through the years, but when Florida challenges them to a 52-46 game in which they made colossal defensive issues, mistakes in the first half that had nothing to do with talent or ability, it just was, committing non-action penalties in the first half that converted third downs into first downs for Alabama, or turned 3rd and 10s into 3rd and 5s for Alabama, and they mismanaged the clock at the end of the first half. I think it's got to give Notre Dame fans a little bit of hope, because while everybody swings the narrative to, well, if Florida played Alabama that close, then kudos to Florida. They must be better than we thought. It never gets to seem to be a narrative of, oh, is there something wrong with Alabama? Do they have some weaknesses there that can be exploited? And we will see here in just a few hours. So, Nathan, we appreciate you stopping by every time. Enjoy the game if that's possible, and we will see you soon.
Thanks for having me, Mark.